Hi guys, and welcome back to World's Best Gardens. This week we are looking at Chartwell, which is the Churchill's garden in Westerham, Kent. It's Winston Churchill. There's the timeline of some of the different photos at different decades throughout his life. Very, very famous politician, and also very famous for his literature. So the admission price is £20 for adult and £10 for a child, and I would recommend joining up to the National Trust. If you're going to see a few of these gardens and properties, you'll save a lot of money. So if you belong to a Commonwealth country like, say, New Zealand, you can actually join up for a lot cheaper. I think it cost us for a family about $75, so it's well worth doing that because there are a huge amount of National Trust properties. So there's a picture of Winston and Clementine Churchill just sitting in their garden, I believe, and we're going to walk through the garden. The gardens are pretty extensive. You're looking around about 80 acres, and 50 of those acres are in forest, and there's some beautiful swans there, like that black swan. There's water features like the swimming pool, which was installed by the Churchills. It's heated, believe it or not, and you can swim there too in the winter, 23 Celsius. I'm not sure if it's heated now anymore, but it certainly was back in the day. So that plant there is a Gunra manicata, which is the Brazilian giant rhubarb, and that was also planted by Winston Churchill. This is another water feature that was incorporated by the Churchills. It's the Gavin Jones Cascade. And after Clementine had been to Chelsea Flower Show, she thought that was pretty amazing, and she asked for it to be installed, and it was actually installed by the people, but donated free. So there was a lot of rock that needed to go into putting that in, and that trickles water down to the various water features. Now this particular water feature here is the Golden Orfe Pond. It's a funny name for it, but basically it has just got a lot of little goldfish in there. This was a favourite pastime of Winston Churchill's, to go there, feed the fish, also maybe do a bit of painting because he was into painting, and also maybe a bit of thinking, meditation. See, being a politician, it's the sort of thing you perfect place to do that. And so lots of little fish in that pond. So, and this was Lady Churchill's Rose Garden, and architect Philip Tilden helped to design this, along with the house that you can see in the distance there. The house had major renovations. Of course, when the Churchills arrived here, they had lots of things to do. They wanted to renovate and do various upgrades, and this was one of them. So the house was bought in 1922 by the Churchills for £5,000. Winston Churchill had just received an inheritance of £55,000, which apparently is equivalent to around about £4 million in today's currency. And so he was able to afford this property. Obviously, on a politician's wage, he would not have been able to afford this sort of house. So this helped him to move into this type of estate. The house did need major renovations, which we'll look at in a little bit. So this was the Marlborough Terrace and Pavilion. So this is dedicated to Winston Churchill's ancestor, John Churchill, who was the Duke of Marlborough, and he was very famous for the Battle of Blenheim, which was in 1704. Just like those little pots there, we've got some beautiful little annuals and perennials that just help to sort of enhance that pavilion. On the wall there at the top there, you can see the sort of battle scene that obviously was probably the Battle of Blenheim in 1704. That's a little quick overview of Winston Churchill's family and how he goes back to that Duke of Marlborough. He's me, and I'm taking a video of the garden, and it was a great garden to walk around and obviously film as well. The National Trust do a great job of maintaining and upkeep of these gardens, and that's part of one of the reasons why it was donated to the National Trust, and Winston Churchill and Clementine got to live here for a small rent, but basically the National Trust take on the property. So one of the stipulations of the trust by Winston Churchill was that there should be a marmalade cat there, basically one with some white socks and a marmalade colour. And here he is here. That was Jock the 7th, who was parading around, quite proud to be there. So one of the things that the property has that Winston Churchill, the Churchills, incorporated with these lakes down the bottom there. They're quite large lakes, and they were in 1924 he started that, and then in the 1930s he did some more renovations to it. And so they were quite a nice feature. So from some of the windows in the top of the house there, you can overlook there, and you can overlook from those terraces that view of the lake down the bottom. So the house was renovated in 1922 by architect Philip Tilden, and because the house was dark, it was damp, I think it had also dry rot, small rooms, faced the wrong way, so they ended up spending around about £20,000 on the renovations, which were pretty extensive. And a new wing was incorporated to take advantage of the view over the countryside and obviously of those lakes that were incorporated. Now, the property in 1966 was open to the public. In 1965 is when Winston Churchill died, and then in 1966 this is when the National Trust opened it to the public, and you could walk around it. So this plant here, and that sort of taller tree there, I thought was looking amazing. That is the Eucryphia. I believe it's Eucryphia cordifolia, but I haven't put that because I'm not 100% on that. So where we are now is the front lawn and the front of the garden. So we've kind of come in through the side, but this is the front garden, front lawn area. That there is the front wall. So on the other side of that is the sort of one of the main roads that go through there. So that was one of maybe the downsides when they were buying this property. They didn't want to be so close to the road, but the view across the countryside was what sold it to them, and they ended up being here for a relatively long time and enjoying a lot of the peaceful ambience of the Kent countryside. So here we have one of the plants I also thought was a bit of a standout. This is the climbing hydrangea. So this whole property is not just about the garden, it also has the inside, all the different rooms. It has a lot of history inside too, different rooms dedicated, telling you a lot more about Winston Churchill's history and the Churchills. He was very much into biodiversity, butterflies, loved all that sort of stuff. And so he is quite, you can see that in the garden. Anyway, guys, I'm going to leave you there. As usual, we ended up in the cafe. There is also a little nursery there to buy plants if you need to. I'll leave you with a few snapshots, but I would definitely recommend this as a worthwhile garden and a very, very pleasant garden to walk around.